We knew Michael had excruciating pain which was dimmer, but that's not what killed my brother. The phone rings. A single ring. A cold sentence pierces the heart. Michael has been hospitalized. No warning. Not a single sign. Just last night he was laughing, playing the piano, and saying, "I just want to give them the best of me." The next morning, the whole world was shaken. Jermaine threw everything aside and rushed out like a man fleeing a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Who let this happen? Why did the security footage disappear? Why did such a brilliant life come to a close in such obscurity? It was no longer just simple sorrow. It was a fracture, a shock that cut across an entire century of music, leaving behind a burning question. What did Michael Jackson leave in his final words to his brother? And why have we never truly heard the whole truth? There are moments in life that seem so ordinary that people don't bother to etch them into their memory. But then, when everything falls apart, that very moment becomes an indelible landmark. That night, in a house just large enough for a big family, yellow light cast shadows on the walls, and everything unfolded like any other family gathering. The sound of children chasing each other, lively chatter, the lingering smell of food on the dining table. No one thought this would be the last time they would see Michael Jackson. Not on a stage, not in a dazzling performance outfit, but as a father, a brother, a son, sitting before that old piano. Jermaine Jackson, the older brother who had fought alongside Michael on stages since the Jackson 5's early days in Indiana, watched silently. He didn't say much, just leaned back in his chair with a glass of watered-down orange juice in his hand, eyes fixed on his brother's thin frame. Michael was the same as ever, slightly hunched, his slender back, long thin fingers gliding over the keys as if painting stories without words. He wasn't trying to impress, nor did he need to. For a man who had lived in the spotlight his whole life, that peaceful moment carried a different energy, a calm mixed with sorrow. Michael looked up, his eyes meeting Jermaine's, and gave a faint smile. "I just want to give them the best of me." The words pierced Jermaine's heart. Them, who were they? The children? The millions of fans? Or the very family in that room? That evening, Michael looked both healthy and tired, a contradiction that unsettled Jermaine. His eyes lit up whenever his daughter asked him to play another song, but his hands trembled slightly when they stopped. To outsiders, Michael was immortal, but Jermaine had seen the fragility beneath. Later, after finishing the third song, Michael called him out to the balcony. "Do you think they love me the way they say they do?" Michael asked, his gaze fixed far beyond the city lights. Jermaine replied, "They've always loved you, Michael. You know that." Michael chuckled softly, the laugh of someone who had lived through too many promises, expectations, and disappointments. He nodded faintly and returned to the piano. That moment, in hindsight, felt like a slow-motion film. Michael didn't play his smash hits that night, but instead the ballads he loved, the unreleased songs only his family had heard. The children clapped, the adults chatted, and yet Jermaine felt something different. Michael was holding on, to time, to balance, to something fleeting. As the night grew late, Michael still sat at the piano. Jermaine remembered vividly how he talked about the upcoming This Is It tour. His excitement was childlike, but occasionally his voice dropped as if questioning whether he had the strength to carry it. Jermaine reassured him, "Everything will be fine. You just need to rest more." Words that would later haunt him. Because was rest really enough? As midnight neared, people began to leave. The children dozed, the chatter faded, but Michael remained at the piano, fingers gliding over the keys as though music was the only thing keeping him alive. As Jermaine walked out, he looked back one last time. The thin figure in a white shirt, the hand-tapping rhythm, the faint smile. That image never left him. The next morning, the phone rang. Jermaine, still heavy with sleep, answered to fragmented words. "Michael, hospital, emergency." In that instant, the warmth of the night before shattered. Questions raced. What happened? Why? How could it be overnight? He rushed out, his mind in chaos, streets blurring, every traffic light stretching time. On the way, calls flooded in. Some said Michael was just tired, others said the emergency room, others whispered the situation was dire. Rumors spread faster than truth. For Jermaine, it was unbearable. His brother was not just a superstar. He was family. And last night, he was simply a father at a piano. At the hospital, sterile white halls stretched endlessly. The emergency room door was shut. Behind it, only muffled sounds, machines, Footsteps, voices. Jermaine stood frozen, heart pounding. Memories of their early days in Gary, Indiana, of tours, of exhaustion, flooded back. Now all he wanted was to hear his brother's voice again. He kept asking, "Why won't anyone tell me clearly?" That silence was the beginning of questions that would haunt him forever. Finally, the door opened. Cold white light spilled into the hallway. Inside, Michael lay motionless. Jermaine touched his hand. Cold. Not the cold of winter, but the cold that freezes the soul. He sat holding Michael's hand for what felt like years, whispering, "Michael, I'm here." Tears weren't enough. Crying couldn't touch the void left in him. The words from the night before echoed again. "I just want to give them the best of me." Family arrived. Chaos, disbelief, tears. Jermaine sat still, silent, holding Michael's hand. Later he whispered, "You've done enough, Michael. Now rest." Outside, the world exploded in news and rumors, but inside that room was only silence. Jermaine knew life would never be the same. He had lost not just a brother, but part of his own history. Every rehearsal, every performance, every shared look, they weren't just work. They were life. And now, a hole that could never be filled. In the days that followed, the world asked questions. What happened? Who was responsible? The name most repeated was Dr. Conrad Murray, Michael's personal physician. Some called him negligent, others a scapegoat. But to Jermaine, it was more than one man. It was a system of pressure, contracts, and shadows. Missing security footage only deepened the doubts. The trial of Murray divided opinion, but no verdict could fill Jermaine's void. Time didn't heal, it only numbed. Some nights, he replayed Michael's last words in his head, wondering if his brother had foreseen something. Jermaine began speaking publicly, reminding the world not to reduce Michael's death to one injection. Michael didn't just pass away from negligence. He died in a maze of pressure and exploitation. He reminded people of Michael's light, his charities, his dedication, his humanity. The world didn't just lose a superstar. It lost a heart that beat for the world. Years later, Jermaine still carried that emptiness. At family dinners, Michael's seat was empty. At gatherings, his laughter was missing. In interviews, Jermaine confessed, "I still hear Michael's voice whenever I turn on the radio, but there's no one beside me to nod with anymore." Still, the family carried on Michael's values, charities, foundations, environmental projects. Not to replace him, but to continue him. Michael Jackson's story has no ending.